Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining me on this episode of Val Talks Pets. Guess who is back with me? Souha Ezzedeen, author of The Way of Life Method. Souha and I had a two-part conversation about her amazing training method to raise sound and spirited companions. Today, Souha and I will discuss how her method can be applied to rescue and shelter dogs. So, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Val Talks Pets, the forum for pet parents and enthusiasts alike. Having been in the pet industry for over 10 years now, I'm going to share with you issues and questions that arise as I work with pet parents on a day-to-day basis. I am not a veterinarian, but I do have certifications in canine, feline, small animal, fish and herptile, and avian health and nutrition from the University of California, Davis Extension. Hi, Souha, and welcome back to Val Talks Pets.
Hi, Val. Thank you so much for having me again on your show.
Oh,
I'm
you know what?
excited about what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, I'm so glad we plan to talk about rescue and shelter dogs because,
Yes.
I have in many episodes talked about the benefits of adoption and the real need for potential and current pet parents to open their homes to animals and their hearts to animals in need. So I think it was great that you had this topic. So why don't we begin with discussing, as you say, the need to keep talking about rescue dogs?
Yes. 100%. I'm sure you've been seeing it in your daily life through the media, through the people in your community, that the situation for rescue and shelter dogs has never been
Mm.
more dire.
Yipper.
It's very bad.
Yeah.
In between the dogs in shelters that are not finding homes, in between the difficulty finding people who are willing to foster, because I think in some ways they're concerned about the expense, even though rescues and shelters cover a lot of the expense, but also because they're aware that adoptions are not happening quickly and
Mm-hmm.
that they could end up with a foster for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have an unprecedented amount of rehoming and abandonment of dogs and surrendering of dogs to rescues and shelters that are stretched to the limit.
Mm-hmm.
So now is certainly a time where we really need to talk about this issue. It is reaching very dire proportions, and we need to get very serious about addressing this issue of animal and in particular pet dog homelessness in
Mm-hmm.
our province and in our country.
Mm-hmm.
It does not reflect well on us as a society and as a country to have this grave homeless dog situation. It
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
There's many reasons why things are as bad as they are now. We could certainly, speculate about the impact of the pandemic and the
Mm-hmm.
impact of inflation and the impact
Yeah.
of cost of living. The how limited and ineffectual the authorities have been with curbing puppy mills, with addressing
Yep.
cruelty, with dealing with cases of abandonment and lack of responsibility. I mean, there's so many different reasons
Mm-hmm.
why we are having this issue, and we need to continue talking about it.
So we talk about it by, I guess, basically, if we have the ability to use any social media, we would, that would be one of our ways.
Yes.
Um, I wonder how effective it would be to try and bring the subject to any of our, uh, politicians that are in our,
Yes.
I mean, what about
Yes.
that? You know?
Absolutely. And you bring up an excellent point because here we are. We live in a democracy, one of the leading democracies around the world.
Hmm.
We're one of the G7. We're supposed to be a powerful country, a powerful economy, a powerful democracy. So if we're not knocking on their doors and sending them emails and making phone calls to our elected representatives, I don't know what we're doing here. It's
Yeah.
certainly a big part of our activism for animals is that we remain in touch with the people that we have elected, whose job is supposedly to represent our interests.
Hmm.
And the situation of our animals is certainly a major interest for people like you, for people like me, and others in our community. So, absolutely, that is one thing that we need to be doing more of.
Hmm.
There are organizations that deal with, animal cruelty and animal welfare and animal rights, but we also have a duty as citizens, as individuals, to make a great deal of noise,
Yes.
because it is painful
Hmm.
and unacceptable, really, that we be such a leading economy and that so many of our animals and people
Hmm.
are suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's funny, I mean, obviously the pandemic really did not help anything in terms of this. People got so many dogs, and the next thing you know,
Yes.
they're all exploding into the shelters, which
Yes.
absolutely, like, it just makes you think, really? This is what people in a country like this do?
Hmm.
That was astounding, and it just was so upsetting, and I feel so bad for these animals.
I agree with you. I agree with you. There are
Um,
times it enrages me, but
yeah.
then on the other hand, there's legitimate concerns that people had that they were called back to the office, that there was
Hmm.
very little flexibility with working from home or
Yeah.
adopting a hybrid schedule, or
Hmm.
or employers being somewhat responsive to this responsibility that people have taken on.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
certainly a lack of responsibility from people, but also ways that organizations do not make it easy for us always to meet these responsibilities.
That's right. Absolutely. I think that's so true because if you were able to even, if your dog is a very well behaved dog, why, and you have an office, why can't your dog come and hang out in the office?
I couldn't agree more with
I
you. I
don't
couldn't agree more with
understand.
you. We did research with my student at one of my doctoral candidates at the
Hmm.
university. We did research on pet-friendly
Oh,
workplaces,
yeah.
and yeah, and allowing dogs in the workplace and other kinds of pets potentially in the workplace as well. And there are so many ways that employers and organizations can make it a little bit easier on us pet owners to deal with our responsibilities. And
Hmm.
as you said, if you have an office and a well-behaved dog, why couldn't you take your dog with you to the office a day or two a week?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you negotiate for a day a week where you're able to work from home?
Hmm.
Why can't you possibly negotiate to work at a third party location where maybe dogs are allowed,
Yeah.
or other pets are allowed?
Yeah.
But there's also other ways that employers can help. For example,
Hmm.
by helping defray the costs of pet insurance, by helping defray the costs of daycare, by
Hmm.
helping defray the costs of a dog walker, by providing flexible spending accounts that people can spend flexibly on their animals.
Hmm.
So if bringing dogs to the workplace is not possible, which I can understand how sometimes it may not be possible. There are certain
Hmm.
workplaces where it's just not
Yeah. It's not
it's
feasible.
not possible. It's
Yeah.
not feasible. It could be in healthcare, it could be in
Yeah.
places where there's a lot of interactions with the public, where it could be a liability to have animals around. I mean, there's many different
Yeah.
situations where it just does not make sense to be able to take your animals to work. But that is just one level of responsibility towards people with pets. There's
Hmm.
other ways to support people with pets that I don't see very many employers take advantage of. Meanwhile, it would be such a huge retention tool
Oh,
for
gosh.
them, right? The
Yeah.
the the degree of commitment and attachment that people could have to an
Yeah.
employer that realizes that this is a big part of their life and helps them address it.
I think the quality of the work would rise as well because people are so much
Agreed.
happier being at work with their
Yes.
dog, right? Even
Yes,
their cat.
and there's
Hmm.
evidence to support that. People
Yeah.
talk to each other more, they're more
Yeah.
friendly with each other, dogs break the ice.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
They infuse the workplace with humor and lightheartedness and
Hmm.
connection between people. So there's many advantages. It would be crazy to deny the potential risks in between behavior, hygiene,
Hmm.
and other potential issues, but those are not reasons to deny, animals in the workplace, or not consider ways that we can support people with pets. Those are just factors to account for when drafting a pets in the workplace policy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's no reason why that would, I think a pets in the workplace policy would be a
Hmm.
really good idea because then everybody would sort of know what the boundaries are and what
Yes.
the expectations are, and the employer would know what their role is. And yeah, it would make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, bringing pets into the workplace is a really good idea. That would open things for people. I was just
Hmm.
thinking when you were mentioning about that, one of the things the actual SPCA shelter in where I am,
Hmm.
they have created an in-house pantry. Now, this is not the food for the shelter dogs that are there for adoption.
Hmm.
This is
Hmm.
just a pantry that they've created. Now, this is all done by donations and this kind of thing. But what it's for is when someone walks in and says, I'm going to have to surrender my dog or my cat,
Hmm.
I just don't have the money anymore to feed it. They
Hmm.
say, you don't have to worry about that. Here is food for you to take home.
Yes.
And they don't do like, they don't take a bag and break it into baggies or anything like that. You get a full bag of food or
Hmm.
you get several cans of food. And if you have to come back in a few days, that's just fine. And if
Yes.
they feel that if they can keep you getting food, then this keeps this animal, this dog, this cat in the home where they want them,
Yes.
and so
100%.
they've launched this little program, which it's great program.
I
And I
agree
wish
with
other
you.
shelters need to do that too.
Yes, I'm aware of quite a few. Toronto Humane Society here in the city has a sizable food bank, what they call a food bank, where people
Hmm.
can absolutely come and collect food if they are,
Yeah.
if they are lacking the means to be able to purchase food. But they've also been doing great work with medical care, where
Mm.
instead of taking the animal and trying to rehome the animal because the animal had a health issue that the owners couldn't afford to deal with, the shelter helps them deal with it. And then
Perfect.
the animal is able to stay in their home. There's
Hmm.
organizations like the Farley Foundation as
Oh,
well
Farley
that
Foundation, absolutely
they're
fantastic.
incredible.
Yep. Yep.
And they help people cover vet bills so that the animals can stay in their homes with the
Yep.
people that they love and the people who love them.
Yeah.
So that is certainly one big part of this mission
Hmm.
is helping people who want to keep their dogs, helping people keep these dogs.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and cats and
Yeah, yeah,
and other pets.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, rabbits are the number one surrendered animal to their
Oh,
shelter,
yes.
because people,
Yes. And
yeah,
staying for a long time before they're being
I know.
adopted.
And
It's
I've
awful,
talked
really.
about this many times about that. Um, so, some people are actually, there's people out there that are like diehard rescue dog people,
Hmm.
that's all, they always go to a shelter and they always get that. Um, and but there's some people that are still hesitant about adopting from a shelter
Yes.
for some specific reasons. And um, what do you see as the assumptions that people make about shelter and rescue dogs that seem
Hmm.
to have them be hesitant about doing that?
Yes. Great question. So people might be interested in a particular breed,
That's true.
right? And then
Yep.
they think that they can't find that breed in a shelter, and so they go to a breeder. Now,
Yeah.
full disclosure, I'm not against, you know, reputable,
Oh,
responsible,
certified.
ethical breeding.
Yep.
Absolutely, that, those are not the groups that are causing issues, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Those reputable breeders, a reputable breeder takes back their dogs. They breed quality dogs, sound
Yep.
dogs that are of healthy bodies and healthy temperaments.
Yep.
So that is not the issue, but you will most likely find a rescue for the breed of your choice.
That's true.
There's rescues, breed specific rescues for just about every
Every
breed that is
breed.
out there.
Yep.
Even French bulldogs that were very hard to find in shelters, there's now rescues that deal with Frenchies.
Yeah.
Belgian Malinois were
Oh,
very coveted dogs and hard to find unless you went to a reputable breeder. Guess what? Now there are more than one rescue that I am
Hmm.
aware of that takes on Belgian shepherds and shepherd mixes.
Yep.
So if people could think that they're not going to find the breed of their dreams or the breed of their choice, that is not necessarily the case. There are breed specific rescues
That's
out
right.
there,
Absolutely. Good
right?
point. Yep.
So that's one idea that that is important to dispel, is that if you're interested in a particular breed, chances are there's a breed specific rescue.
That's right. Absolutely.
People also talk about wanting to raise their own dog from scratch. They want to
Hmm.
raise a puppy. Well, guess what? There's puppies in shelters, there's puppies in rescues all the time,
Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
And it's likely that that puppy would have had, would have been cared for well at the shelter. And now you sort of have a blank slate and you can raise that puppy as if you picked up that puppy from a breeder. So it
Yep.
is possible to find puppies in shelters.
Absolutely.
Um, but really, with that said, I think the biggest barrier,
Hmm.
and tell me if you agree, but I
Okay.
think the biggest barrier is that we have the assumption that if a dog spent some time in rescue
Hmm.
or in a shelter,
Hmm.
chances are they're riddled with behavioral issues,
Absolutely. Yep.
right? That
Yep.
is the assumption that people have
That's right.
about rescue and shelter dogs, is that even if they came from a good background
Hmm.
and then were rehomed
Yep.
and spent a little bit of time in a shelter, that that dog now is traumatized and
Yeah.
therefore not, not a sound dog, not a good dog to bring home.
Yep.
And we can certainly talk about how untrue that is.
Yep.
And we can certainly talk about the fact that even if the dogs were a little bit traumatized by their experience, because let's face it, it is difficult to be abandoned. It is
Sure.
difficult to be surrendered. It is difficult to spend some time not knowing who your people are,
Yeah.
not knowing where you belong.
Hmm.
But that's why I'm here with the Way of Life method,
Yeah,
is that,
exactly.
right? Is that there
Yeah.
are things that we can do to help heal these dogs in the
Hmm.
same way that people can recover from traumatic experiences, traumatic phases in their life.
There you
It
go.
is true as well of dogs that if we know what we are doing, if we are deliberate about how we set up the dog's way of life, which includes our attitude towards the dog, there's no reason why dogs from even very difficult backgrounds cannot recover and find joy and find health
Yep.
and find mental health and provide years and years of wonderful companionship.
Yep.
There's no reason why that's not possible with a shelter dog. In fact, it is entirely possible with shelter dogs. And that was very much one of the reasons why I was so driven to write my book and start my
Hmm.
business and talk to people about the Way of Life method, is really to give them that sense that if you wanted to rescue, you could.
Hmm.
I mean, if you want to get a dog from, a reputable breeder, I would bless that as well. But if you feel it in your heart that you would be drawn to rescuing a dog, adopting a dog from a shelter, there are ways to help that dog transition into your life and heal from whatever trauma, scars, upset the rescue and shelter experience might have created.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so that's very true. And I think, I can't say how many times people ask about dogs and then they'll say, well, the SPCA's, oh, well, I don't know. You never know what you're going to get when you do that.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, you can foster it for a bit and see how it
Correct.
works.
Yes.
We fostered Tundra first, just because he was
Hmm.
also in the SPCA system because of medical issues. But
Hmm.
we fostered him first, and it's called foster to adopt, basically.
Correct.
But
And you have the support of the shelter during
yeah,
that
you
time,
do.
right? You
Yeah.
have the medical support,
Yep.
you have
Yeah.
food is provided, you have trainers
Yep.
and foster support personnel that are helping you with
Yeah.
that dog, that are helping facilitate the adoption.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fostering it is a wonderful way to get to know
Hmm.
shelter dogs and realize that one of these might be your
Just the
failed
dog.
foster, might be
Yep.
just the dog for you.
Oh
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely. And I think of a story. There was this a beagle. This was several years back now. There was this beagle at the shelter, and beagles often get
Bit of a
they
bad
get
rap.
because yeah, and they get put in shelters a lot because they're beagles, right? They
Hmm.
like to bark, howl, and roar, and everything.
Follow
So
their
anyway, yeah,
nose.
follow their nose, right? So this beagle was at the shelter. He got adopted. He came back a couple of days later. Then he got adopted again, and then he came back a couple of weeks later, and then he got adopted again, and the same thing happened. And then he went to one of the shelter staff members as a foster.
Hmm.
And in between this time, there was this man who saw this dog on their site and thought,
Hmm.
this would be perfect for me. And he called and they said, oh no, he just got adopted. And he was like, oh, okay. So he just waited, and then he saw that the dog was back. And he called, and this time it was in with the staff shelter, fostering with one of the staff members.
Hmm.
And the difference here is that this guy actually had beagles in the past. He was an
Yes.
experienced beagle owner. So he went and he adopted the dog. I saw him not too long ago. The dog is now 10 or 11 years of age. So
Wonderful.
it was like 2 or 3 when it was adopted. So it's now going into more senior years. He's had it all this time. They've been the best companions for each other. They're a great team, everything, because
Hmm.
he knew this breed, and he
Yeah.
was the right guy.
Yeah.
But the fact that that dog went out like 3 times and came back, that sounds very traumatizing. But once he was in this safe environment, knowing that this is going to be my human, there
Hmm.
was no issue.
I'm so glad you bring this up because those of us who have spent time in the rescue and shelter system, we know that those repeated
Yeah,
failed adoptions can
yeah,
really take their toll on some dogs.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean that once the dog is in the right home, handled correctly, that doesn't mean that dog is not able to recover. The resilience of dogs is truly extraordinary,
yeah.
but we can overlook that resilience sometimes and minimize it and go on and on with the sob story,
Yeah,
right? And think that this poor dog is now doomed to a lifetime of anxiety and
yeah,
fear
yeah.
or aggression or reactivity because of what they've endured in their past. Meanwhile, if you are willing to accept how resilient the dog is and handle them a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
design a way of life that helps them heal, helps them recover, they do recover.
Mm-hmm.
They do move on. They want to move on. They're capable of moving on once they feel, as you said, loved and safe and looked after by people who understand them, understand their
Yep.
breed if it's a specific breed. They can recover, but really we do them a disservice when we think that, oh,
Yeah.
now they're scarred for life.
Yeah.
They won't make a good dog. I'll have to deal with a lifetime of behavioral issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is not the case.
No, it's not the case. And I'm not saying that there isn't dogs in the shelter that have been put there
Mm-hmm.
because of behavioral issues and people are at the end of
100%.
their ropes and they can't do it anymore. And this is their only way out. And that happens. And that poor dog needs extra help.
Yes.
This is when you have to pull in the experts and the trainers like
Yes.
you to really help
Exactly.
out. But there's definitely some other dogs in there that have just been surrendered because, oh, guess what? We have the baby in the house now, so time to
Oh,
get rid of the
yes.
dog, right?
Yes.
um I kick myself now because someone said to me, this was about trying to think now how many, maybe about 4 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. This woman, I hate the way they put this words together. She goes, do you know anybody that wants a Maine Coon?
Mm.
And I said, well, what's the situation? Well, I have to get rid of it. I hate those
Mm-hmm.
words. This is
Mm-hmm.
not garbage. I hate those
Yeah.
words, right? And I said, well,
Yeah.
what's the story? Well, it's he's, we have a dog now. It's a big, we got a big dog puppy. We have another dog. So he's
Mm-hmm.
just getting, too much going on and this kind of thing. So I think he'd be better somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you know what I did was I tried to encourage her to try and have this pack be created with including the cat and
Mm-hmm.
having him learn about the dogs, et cetera, and everything. And I thought, and I don't know what happened. I really don't. I don't know if she did or whatever. But I mean, I should have just turned around and said, sure, I'll take it. You
Mm-hmm.
know? I,
They
I,
do well with dogs,
yeah. Oh,
apparently.
yeah.
And
They're
they're
like a
very
dog,
friendly
right?
cats. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like the dogs of the cat world, from what I
Yeah,
hear.
exactly. So that's what I've heard. So I'm like, yeah, I should have, but because the using the words, I need to get rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
I should have twigged then. You're not the person that's going to put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
know what I
agree with you.
mean?
I agree with you. And this
Yeah.
happens so often where one creature replaces another. We
Yeah.
bring this dog, and now the older dog needs to go. We bring this dog, and
Yeah.
now the cat needs to go.
Yeah. What is that?
A baby comes into the picture, and now the dog needs to go.
Yeah, I hate that.
Me too,
I
really,
just
with a
hate that.
passion,
Yeah.
because it's avoidable. It is possible to
Yeah.
have dogs and children coexisting. Um, I'm sure that there are situations where it would be very, very, very difficult to do so, but is that most cases that are out
Mhm.
there? I doubt it.
No, I don't think it's most cases. No, I
No,
don't. I think it is. There's definitely examples of this, but I don't think that's the majority. I mean, I may be
I
totally
agree.
wrong, but I
No,
don't
I agree. I mean, I heard of a case not long ago where there
know.
were two young children and a very, 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 very driven border collie in the house
Oh,
that was
yeah.
just being neglected.
Yeah.
So I can understand to
Yeah.
some degree the difficulty of that situation
Yeah.
and try to not judge it.
Yeah.
But there's also, excuse me, the other very difficult situation that is also avoidable is somebody passing away,
Oh, yes, that does happen.
right?
Yep. Hmm.
Excuse me, and not having paperwork in order, a living
Hmm.
will,
Hmm.
people who are ready to come and assume responsibility for their dogs or
Yeah.
cats.
Yep.
That is an avoidable situation.
It is.
At the very least, I know that there are some rescues that will take back their rescues in the event of one of, their dogs ending up with someone who passed away.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that is also another unfortunate situation
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
anybody here ought to be thinking about. God forbid, should anything happen to you,
Yes.
do you have your paperwork in order? Who are the people who are going to be coming in to step in to
Yep.
look after these dogs, to find them proper homes, or maybe to even take these dogs?
Yeah.
So that is another way that we can prevent
Yep.
um, dogs and other animals from, entering into the shelter and rescue system.
How many times have you heard where there's a senior dog going into the shelter, and the reason is because the owner has now gone into long-term care.
Yes.
They
Oh my
won't let them
gosh,
have the
yes.
dog, and
Yep.
nobody in the family wants it.
Yes.
You hear
It's
that a lot,
heartbreaking.
isn't it
It's
though?
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yes, it is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, I heard about um, a young woman with a very old Jack Russell, and she had to move from her home. She ended up being homeless. She
Mm.
moved into the home of a good friend of hers, and that good friend has cats, and the cats and dogs were not seeing eye to eye.
Hmm.
And I tried to offer my services to try to help the
Hmm.
dog adjust and try to create peace between the animals, and it was not going to happen. And so they went looking for a rescue for this very old
Oh,
Jack Russell that was also very anxious,
sure.
had a lot of anxiety issues, and this is where you start to wonder
Yeah.
what would have been, maybe the kinder option.
Yeah. I know
Is
where you're
it,
going. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it rehoming a very anxious
Yeah.
older dog that has spent his entire life with one family
Yeah.
and now to be rehomed, that's where these discussions become inevitable. And
Yep.
it's unfortunate that we have to go there, but one has to ask, what is the more merciful way out of the
Yeah.
situation? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
This happened to me just not too long. It was only about two couple weeks ago. A gentleman telling me about his puppy, and he was like, "Well, I don't know what to do. He pulls all the time, and then I'm 82 years old, so I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
God, what are you
Yeah.
thinking getting a puppy at 82?" And he goes,
Yes.
and the dog's going to probably outlive me. And I said,
Ugh.
yep. And he says, but no, it's okay. My son will take him. I said, put it in the will. He
Yeah,
goes, oh no, he
exactly.
loves dogs. And I said, doesn't matter. Put it in the will.
Yes, exactly. I agree with you.
Like, oh
A
my
lot
gosh,
can
what are you
change.
thinking?
A lot can change.
Yeah, why? If you're that, and I could get it for the companionship, then why didn't you go and adopt one of the senior dogs that are being, looked over in the shelter?
Exactly.
Would have been
Exactly. That
perfect.
that in all likelihood would finish their days with you,
Yeah,
that in all li are not going to pull you down the street, are not going to
exactly.
require hundreds and thousands of dollars of training,
Yep.
and many of them need homes.
Oh,
And
do they
and and and
ever?
and to be honest, they make great pets even for people with young kids who are
Yep.
busy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be a senior to adopt a senior. Somebody
No.
who is busy, works a fair bit of time, and or
Yeah.
but they still are available for their animals.
They're
Senior dogs
perfect.
are also appropriate. Exactly.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, let's say that someone finds this really great companion at the shelter and they head
Hmm.
home with their, new furry friend. It's working out. What are some of the common mistakes that a new pet parent of a rescue may make?
Yes, great question. And my answer to this, Val, is
Mm-hmm.
that they are the same mistakes that people make when they bring a dog from a breeder
Mm.
or a dog that it got rehomed to them from, let's say, a family member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm reminded here of a program at Toronto Humane Society called Facilitated Adoptions,
Oh, what's that?
where somebody wants to rehome their dog, let's say, and instead of the dog being surrendered to the shelter and spending time in the shelter building, they stay in their home until a home is found for that dog. So they would go from a home to another
Okay.
without spending time in a shelter, and the Humane Society facilitates that adoption from a home to another.
Okay. Yeah.
So the argument that they've been traumatized by
Mm.
time in the shelter does not apply quite in the same way, but guess what? They are still new in that person's home.
Mm-hmm.
And the family that they once knew is no longer around. They're
Yeah.
disoriented. They feel lost.
Yeah.
But also the same goes with a puppy that's been brought from a high-end breeder.
That's so
That puppy
true.
also lost their mom, their litter mates,
Yeah.
the breeder that they've known since they first popped into this life.
Yeah.
So with all dogs, but in particular with shelter dogs, there are many mistakes that people make. For example,
Mm-hmm.
immediately giving the dog the run of the house
Okay.
and full freedom, full integration, introducing this new dog to everyone in the family, everyone in the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the rapid fire socialization when this new dog hardly knows us.
Right.
And not only do they hardly know us, they're not really interested in us just yet. They are grieving their former family, the family that they knew. And even if it was
Mm.
not a very good situation for them, it was still what they knew.
Right. Yeah.
It is what was familiar to them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
the idea that I rescued this dog and this dog is immediately going to bond with me and bond with everyone in my family and community is really one of the biggest mistakes that people make. that end up causing the dogs great deals of stress, i.e., reactive, anxious, fearful
Okay.
behavior,
Mm-hmm.
which can then lead that dog to be returned
Okay. Yeah.
to that shelter or rescue or even
Mm-hmm.
breeder where
Mm-hmm.
they came from.
Right.
So there's that idea is that immediately this dog is going to bond with us because we rescued this dog, or
Mm-hmm.
this
Yeah.
puppy's immediately going to bond with us because we're his owners,
Yeah.
we're his family. That
Yeah.
dog doesn't know that yet.
Yeah.
They need time to know that. So
Mm-hmm.
that rapid integration, rapid socialization is really one of the biggest mistakes that we see.
Okay.
Another one is immediately training the dogs for obedience
Hmm.
and expecting them to obey.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. That's really asking a lot, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So I hardly know you,
Yeah.
and you and I just met,
Mm-hmm.
and here you are, you've got all these demands.
Yeah.
You want me to like everybody in your family and your circle, and you want me to immediately start behaving for you
Yeah.
when meanwhile I'm very stressed and anxious and sad and heartbroken and working through
Mm.
that trauma, big or small.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that is really something that we see a lot. I'm more in favor of raising dogs than I am of training dogs. When dogs are raised correctly, the amount of training that is needed to have a good companion is minimized in ways that people find surprising when once they start working through my method, where they realize that they put the cart before the horse. They started training a dog when they needed to focus on raising that dog, and then the training is easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The idea that these animals need a period of transition,
Mm-hmm.
an early stage where things are kept simple, where they are decompressed through this important change in their life. And that's regardless of age, breed, or background. They all need a period of transition that tends to be overlooked at a minimum by most people, that are adopting a new dog or even a puppy, is the expectation that you can just plug and play
Yeah, that's
this
so
dog or
true.
puppy,
Yeah,
you
plug and
know?
play. Yeah, that's so true. Mm-hmm.
Another mistake I think people make is in the ideas that they have,
Oh,
is that, well, I rescued this dog and therefore they ought to be grateful.
grateful.
They ought to
No.
be
Yep.
perfect,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
because they were rescued,
Yep.
because they were adopted. And so therefore they ought to be, on their best behavior because they're grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Not the case. They don't know what they are grateful for yet,
That's so true.
right? They
Yeah.
don't know that what you have in mind is this great life for them. They do
Yeah.
not know that yet.
Yeah.
All they know is that they're missing what they once knew.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. No, that's so true. And it's true. I mean, you'd think this dog would be grateful, It's like, well, he doesn't have a clue.
Yeah,
Why would he be? Yeah,
exactly. And
exactly.
they need some time to bond with people. It's not because they're dogs and they're man's best friend,
Yeah.
and they're wired to care for the human that cares for them, that it necessarily happens immediately. It
Yeah.
does not happen immediately. They need that decompression period. They
Yeah.
need that transition.
No, true.
And in many ways, I think shelters and rescues are, they try hard, but I think there's an opportunity there to do better in
Mm-hmm.
terms of preparing people for
Yes.
the expectations that they have,
Yeah.
preparing them for that period of transition, letting people understand that it could be a few weeks, maybe even a few months
That's a good
before these
point.
dogs are you know are ready to bond, are ready to
Sure.
respond to training, are ready to socialize with others.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes total sense. Yeah, that would actually be a really good thing, sort of in that combination of how can we get people to be more uh, wanting to do rescue dogs and this kind of thing. But if we could get the shelters and the rescues to
Mm-hmm.
be more proactive with, okay, I'm going to help you with the transition. This is what to expect. Don't
Yes.
expect this. These are the things, and we're here for you. Give us a call, that kind of
Yes.
thing. Yeah, that's a really good point. When we brought Tundra home, well, I brought Tundra home, but he already knew my husband. He already had been sharing his office with him because he was with the
Mm-hmm.
SPCA at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so he already knew him, but he didn't know me. And
Right.
but I had to bring him home from the shelter because we were fostering. So I put him in the car and bring him home. And I drove into the garage. That way I could shut the door and let him out of the car, and he'd be, wouldn't have any chances of him running away or anything.
Yes, which happens a lot.
It does. And
Yeah.
but I didn't know he'd know how to go up the stairs. I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea. So I was like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, this dog doesn't know how to go upstairs. That's
Yeah.
so I had to try and help him, and sort of he was like he had no idea what I was asking him to do.
Yeah.
But he came in that house, and I'm telling you, within I hardly even blinked, and he went in the house, peed all over my plants, got a chicken out of the compost, the bones, ate it, ran over, jumped on the couch, and I literally just thought, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
What just happened? I was like, wow. Now, this that behavior then and this and the dog now is so far away from each other. I can't even begin to
Mm-hmm.
think that that was the same dog.
Right.
There's no way in a million, like this, that dog would net, but that's what he did. He came in,
Mm-hmm.
peed, grabbed a thing out of the compost, ate it. I let him stay on the couch. He jumped up there, put his head on the pillow, and that was it. He slept for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole beginning behavior just goes to show you I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah.
I have no idea. He just came in and blah, and that was that. And so, yeah, the dog that comes home straight from the shelter isn't the dog that you're probably going to see later on,
Correct,
right?
100%. And also, as part of this education for new adopters, and let me say something very quickly here, is that I
Hmm.
understand that shelters and rescues can find themselves in between a rock and a hard place. Is that on the
Sure.
one hand, they want to educate the public, they need to educate the public about this period of transition.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I can see how they might be reluctant to do so because that can turn off some people. What do you
Totally.
mean?
What do you mean
What do you
not
mean
to?
it might be 3 months before I
Yeah.
can, take him
Yeah.
camping? What do you mean it might
Yeah.
be 6 months before we can have a barbecue?
Yeah.
And that can turn off some people. But
Sure.
at the same time, there's a greater likelihood of success for the long term, and therefore for the success of rescue dogs in general, and for the reputation of rescue dogs and shelters, if they are more honest and business about this
Hmm.
transition period. So
Yeah.
I'm very glad that Tundra ended up with you and that you were understanding of that behavior, but somebody else would have
What's
maybe
with this
returned
dog?
the
I'm
dog.
taking him
What's with
back.
this dog? We're taking him back. They raid the garbage. They pee
Yeah.
on my plants. They can't
Yeah.
they can't do stairs. I don't want this dog.
Yeah.
But part of this education is precisely to say that when you bring this new dog home, you have a leash on them, you
Hmm.
introduce them to your home gradually. That's where crating comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where
Great in.
providing a restricted space comes in,
Hmm.
which allows the dog to have a gradual integration into the home,
Hmm.
not a full-on integration. I'm
Hmm.
very glad that your dog had a stable enough temperament that he was able to settle in
Yeah,
nicely
but
for
that's
you.
not always the case.
But that was not always the case. I remember from our prior conversation. But again, talking to our to many of our clients where they realize now that the amount of freedom given to their new dogs
Hmm.
early on and the amount of rapid integration into the home, in their beds, their couches, with the other
Yeah.
dogs, with the cats and the bunnies, might have been counterproductive
Yep.
because it was too much too
Too
soon
soon.
to
Yeah.
be asking of that dog. And now they're already coming with a residue of anxiety and
Hmm.
lack of self-esteem for having been rehomed or abandoned or surrendered.
Hmm.
And now they're facing the stress, and you have an accumulation of stress in these dogs that can end up manifesting as behavioral issues. So
Yeah.
it's part of that education that I think
Hmm.
we could do a better job with,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, restricting the dogs in the beginning, managing the dogs, setting boundaries around these dogs, keeping a leash on them,
Hmm.
not expecting them to bond with us immediately and reciprocate our love and reciprocate our
Yeah.
affection.
Hmm.
All of these can really make a night and day difference for whether a shelter dog succeeds in our home.
Hmm.
But I can also understand, as I said a few moments ago, why shelters and rescues might be reluctant
Yeah, I get it.
to,
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
tell people that they have to
Yeah.
postpone and
Yeah.
delay the dream, delay the
Yeah.
gratification of this dog,
Yeah.
and that they have a duty and responsibility to help that dog transition,
Yeah. That's true.
which can take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the cat that's surrendered to the shelter because it pees on laundry. And I'm like, and I've had people say, well, if this can't stop, I'm going to have to, take it to the
Mm-hmm.
shelter. I'm like, don't do that. If you
Mm-hmm.
do that, I can tell you what's going to happen.
Oh,
He's going
yeah,
to get a
especially
doctor.
these
This is going to
days.
happen again. Then he's going to come. Someone's going to either kick him out onto the street, or they're just going to euthanize him.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get to the bottom of this.
Yes, and there is help available.
There is. Yeah.
There are cat experts, there are
Mhm.
bunny experts, there
Yeah.
are bird experts, there are reptile and
Yep.
exotic species experts,
Yes.
and Lord knows there's a massive dog training industry now. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily support all of the training methodologies that are out there, and
Yeah.
we've spoken about that in the past. I'm more oriented towards rearing and managing and handling and relating in healthy ways as opposed to training the dogs. But with that said, there is help. And I
Yeah.
find people reluctant to get help. It's almost that they think that my love ought to be enough, my care
Mm.
ought to be enough, the my commitment ought to be enough, the experience that I had growing up with dogs ought to
Yeah.
be enough,
Yeah.
when in fact a trainer can really make
Oh, huge
and a good
difference.
trainer, they
Yes.
can make a huge difference.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Well, then let's get down to the nitty-gritty then, and see how can the five principles that you use in the way
Mm-hmm.
of life method make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. So let's recap what these are
Okay.
for anyone who may not be familiar with the way of life method. So
Mhm.
the way of life method considers behavioral issues to be related to the situation in which the dog exists, as opposed to them being inherent in the dog.
Okay.
So instead of saying the dog is anxious, the dog is reactive,
Hmm.
we look at things a little bit differently, and the words that we use are important.
Hmm.
The way we think is important. So instead of thinking that it's the dog that is inherently messed up,
Hmm.
we believe and know for a fact that dogs reflect their situations. And when the situation is healed, redesigned, adjusted in a way that is congruent with the canine mind and state of mind when they're freshly adopted, that will be reflected in the dog's behavior,
Okay. Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so instead of the dog being inherently anxious or that isn't their character or personality, we know that anxiety is something that they are exhibiting because the situation is stressful. The situation is causing anxiety and stress. Okay. And so, what does the situation mean? The situation is way of life, a dog's way of life. And that way of life includes five elements. One of these elements is that we work in stages.
Hmm.
The dog is a living being creature that, just like us, is going to experience developmental stages. We go
Hmm.
through childhood, teenage, early adulthood, and then our senior years, and so on. Same with the dogs. They also have developmental periods: childhood and puppyhood, teenage or adolescence, and adulthood. When a dog comes to my home, whether they are a puppy or a 5-year-old, by definition, they are in a childhood, in a juvenile state of mind because they do not know my home.
Mhm.
They do not know me.
True.
Our relationship is in its childhood stages. And therefore, the dog is going to be more of an juvenile as opposed to an adult.
Yeah.
And therefore, they need to be started from that standpoint, from that place that you're starting from scratch, as if they are a puppy, as if you just met them. They have a juvenile state of mind because you do not know each other and because your relationship is still in juvenile stages.
Mm-hmm.
So the way of life method works in stages. I bring a new dog home. I start them, even if they're 5 years old, even if they're 6 years old, I
Mm-hmm.
start them off as if they are a puppy that doesn't know any better. And I create a way of life that is congruent with a dog that is still in a puppy frame of mind.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that is the first element of the way of life method. Another element is our attitude and our mindset and how we relate to dogs and how we see them, the thoughts and ideas and the feelings that we have about them. Okay, so there is one thing that pervades the world of rescue and that honestly I find incredibly toxic and unhelpful, and that is the going on and on and on about what these poor dogs have been through in their former life
Right. Yeah.
and the rehashing of the sob story
Mm.
and making all sorts of excuses for why they're reactive and anxious and poorly behaved today because you know what? 7 years ago, they were tied to a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
takes away complete responsibility
Yeah.
for us to be able to heal that situation, which we can.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we're falling back on things that happened to this dog last year, 5 years ago, 8 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, what about all these years that we've had with this dog?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't they explain the behavior that we have? And so that is part of our attitude is that we
Mm-hmm.
take responsibility for our dogs and we don't fall back on excuses that because they're a rescue or because they spent however many months in foster care or because they came from a high-kill shelter in Texas,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whatever it was,
Yeah.
whatever it is, we make excuses for a dog's behavior based on their rescue background, which not only doesn't help the reputation of rescue dogs, but
Mm-hmm.
also ends up depriving your adopted dog of a wonderful life because you're thinking that you cannot do anything stressful or you don't want to be training these dogs because, they've already been through so
There's so
much,
much. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I tell people, for example, about creating the dog, about separating the new dog from the existing dog,
Mm-hmm.
about giving the new dog
Mm-hmm.
alone time in a safe yard, alone time in an exercise pen, separated
Yeah.
from everybody else. No, that would be too stressful. That would hurt our bonds. The dog has gone through enough.
Mm.
That is so key
Yeah.
and can really make a night and day difference.
Yeah.
I lost a dog last week,
You did.
and I will tell you, I if I wanted to fall back on excuses,
Mm-hmm.
there was not a lack of excuses I could have fallen back on. He was a street dog. Street dog's life is stressful.
Mm-hmm.
That's traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
He was plucked off from the streets and then coddled by his new family. He
Okay.
bit everyone in that family.
Oh, dear.
This plucky street dog, tough little dog who's now on somebody's couch.
Yeah.
How was he going to take to that exactly?
Yeah.
And then they bring him here to Canada and they take him to a fairly corrective trainer.
Oh.
So he had that experience. And then he was in a shelter.
Oh my
You
goodness.
know, so if I wanted to come up with excuses
You got
for
him.
his reactivity, for his refusal to be handled at the vet, for the issues we had with cutting nails,
Yeah.
for being selective about other dogs. I did not lack excuses,
Yeah.
but I took responsibility for this dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that the things that he experienced in the past were certainly part of the dog that I'm dealing with today, but they
Mm-hmm.
are not a reason to not recover. They are not a reason to not apply the way of life method and help this dog heal with time. And of course, he was never perfect. Perfection's not what we're after.
Right.
But to get to a place where you can tell that this dog is now your dog
Mm-hmm.
and he's recovered from a lot of the elements of the past, that is such a different experience in comparison to what I continue to hear. I could never put my dog in a crate because he was chained to a tree.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
You go ahead and do that. In my opinion, that's not rescuing.
Mm-hmm.
That's simply giving a dog another situation. For me, rescuing the dog is healing them of that trauma. And healing them of that trauma involves taking responsibility for these dogs and the way of life that we give them and the power of that way of life to help them heal from the inside out with time.
Mm-hmm. It's like saying the past trauma, if there was trauma or whatever it was, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to remain, it doesn't have to define who they will be.
Yes.
We can let it go and
Yes.
we can create a different we can create, yes, there's going to be some of the, it's like with humans, there's things that,
Challenges.
challenges, but it doesn't have to define going forward so that I hear it too. Oh, well, he's rescue like this. And
Yeah.
I always say, well, what does that got to do with anything?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean,
That
come
doesn't
on.
mean that you can't, he's not
That you
allowed
can't help them, that you
to,
can't
not,
train them, that you can't
yeah,
challenge them, that you can't turn the page. They
yeah.
want to turn the page. But if they're seeing in our minds that we see them as victims,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
damaged goods, how's the dog supposed to see himself or herself?
Yeah, exactly. And
They
we
are
need
not going
to,
to have that sense of empowerment because they're
yeah,
not being seen as resilient, as powerful, as
yeah,
survivors.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get that because I just don't understand. Like, well, just because he's a rescue doesn't mean he's allowed to drag you down the street.
Correct. Or harass the cat
Yeah,
or be mean to the kids in your neighborhood or
yeah,
guard their food.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
no reason for that.
yeah.
But
I
the
like that.
mindset is a big part.
Okay.
Third element is what I call managing space and boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So just as we talked about a few moments ago, you
Mm-hmm.
bring a new dog home, and instead of giving the dog the whole house, let's give the dog the house gradually
Mm-hmm.
in time. It starts by setting up certain boundaries. Crating is a boundary. Having dogs behind a baby gate is a
Mm-hmm.
boundary.
Yeah.
Having them in an exercise pen so that they're not overwhelmed
Exactly.
by this whole space that they've got to take on,
Mm-hmm.
but also establishing space and boundaries from strangers,
Mm-hmm.
from people that don't know the dog, that the dog doesn't know yet, that the dog is not ready to meet just yet. So, space and boundaries is about creating a gradual integration into the home, not an immediate full on integration, a gradual integration,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that relates to the next element, which is
Yep.
about socialization, which is also about gradually socializing the dog. And in my book, in the Way of Life Method, I talk about 6 levels of socialization. And they start with primordial. Now, we don't need to get very technical, but primordial simply means, do I have a good enough bond with my dog before I can take him to the vet and expect that he's going
Mm.
to be okay with having his nails trimmed and his anal glands expressed?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That is invasive to a dog. That is what I call
Oh, yeah.
oppositional socialization. It's very confrontational, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier on a dog who's got a healthy bond with his person than a
Mm-hmm.
dog who doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
right? Interactional is another kind of socialization, saying hi to people saying hi to the dog. Again, if the dog hardly knows us, those interactions are not going to feel pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a lot more likely to be open to meeting someone introduced to me by my friend
Yeah.
than someone introduced to me by someone I do not know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the way of life method, we break it down into 6 levels of socialization that are to be conquered gradually with time on a strong foundation of relationship. If I have a good relationship with my dog, if I have a good relationship with my dog, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
I am more likely to be successful introducing this dog to new places,
Yeah.
new people, new situations, other dogs, as well as situations that could be difficult, like the vet, like the groomer,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like boarding, because I have to travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of these forms of socialization
Mm-hmm.
are a lot easier if they are conquered gradually and if they are done with a foundation of relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when we first bring a dog home, we do not have a foundation of relationship.
No.
That needs time.
Yeah.
That's why I'm such a big advocate about that transition period, that decompression period, which can last a long time. That is what I call in my book stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
What's the rush?
Yeah.
You got years
Yeah,
to,
that's
to have
true.
fun with this dog, to go places, to do things.
Yep.
Don't rush it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't sabotage your long-term potential because you just want to do everything today because you think your
Yeah.
dog is just so happy they ended up with you
Yeah.
that they're thrilled to do everything that you have in
Right.
mind for them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay?
that's true.
Last element, Val,
Mm-hmm.
building drive
Okay.
in our dogs. Every dog comes with a set of drives. We were talking about beagles earlier and the fact
Mm.
that they love to follow their noses and they like to work.
Yeah.
They like to be active. They like to
Mm-hmm.
serve.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another element of our responsibility is to bring out the drives that are in our dogs and strengthen these dogs' drives. Find outlets for very natural instincts, energies, and tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And different dogs are different. A
Oh
husky
yeah.
is one kind of dog, a shepherd is another kind of dog. A cocker spaniel is yet another kind of dog, but they all have a common interest in 4 basic drives, beginning with food,
Mm-hmm.
progressing up to prey drive, also known as play drive, the desire to play,
Mm-hmm.
right? Chase after things, retrieve a ball, tug, scent. All those are prey or play drive.
Mm-hmm.
And what people don't realize is that until food and prey drive or play drive are met
Mm-hmm.
and fulfilled in a dog, pack drive doesn't emerge. Pack
Mm-hmm.
drive is love. Pack drive is belonging,
Mm-hmm.
loyalty, respect, attachment to the humans.
Yeah.
Until I have met those very basic needs, those very basic drives for food and then prey or play, pack drive is not going to emerge in full force. And so this again confirms the point that I made earlier is that we expect this dog to immediately be in love with us.
Yeah.
No, pack drive doesn't come until the dog feels challenged at the lower levels of
Mm-hmm.
drives,
Mm-hmm.
until you've built up your dog's food drive and you've built up your dog's desire to play, chase, engage with you. And then the affection
Mm-hmm.
starts to come out. The attachment
Yeah.
starts to come out because the dog can tell that this human is meeting their very basic needs and they become worthy of their love, attachment, and loyalty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Many of my clients, when we've been doing the way of life thing for a few months,
Mm-hmm.
one of the most wonderful things that I hear is that the dogs are becoming more affectionate.
Oh yeah. That's nice.
in ways that they were not at the beginning,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I tell them that it's very natural for that affection, aka pack drive,
Yeah.
to manifest later, not
Mm-hmm.
immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. These animals do not live a long time relatively,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
but even with that, that doesn't mean that they get attached quickly.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. Very true. Yeah. Take their time. Yeah.
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 So these are the five elements:
Okay.
working in stages,
Mm-hmm.
setting a correct mindset,
Yep.
embodying a correct, detached, professional
Mm-hmm.
mindset where you're not needy,
Yep.
you're not waiting and expecting this dog to
Yeah.
give you
No.
everything.
Super good
It
point.
is such a turnoff
Yeah.
for a dog. I mean, imagine you just met somebody, a friend, a potential mate,
Yep.
even a coworker, and immediately you're expected to have this deep bond. How does it work
Yeah, I
like that?
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't work like
Or
that.
I'm gonna hug you and kiss you all day, right? It's
Exactly.
like,
You
folks,
would be
I don't even
creeped
know
out.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You get my point,
totally. It's great.
setting
Yeah.
space and boundaries, gradually
Hmm.
socializing, and then building those drives. Those are the five elements that, if they are designed correctly in a way that is consistent with that early stage,
Hmm.
that helps the dog transition, recover from issues that they might have inherited,
Hmm.
but also develop a very deep bond with their person, because they can tell that that was not a needy, codependent human in a rush.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that is actually what makes dogs very grateful, not simply the fact that they were adopted
Yeah, they don't need
or
that.
acquired from a breeder.
Yeah.
That is what makes the dogs fall in love with their people, is when they can realize that they are being given the chance to adjust, and
Hmm.
they're being set up to succeed,
Yeah.
not set up to fail
Fail.
because we're in a rush and we just want to plug and play this dog.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great, great analogy. And I think that probably some dogs, um, because they're all so different, it's possible that some dogs go through the process a little bit faster than on some other
Correct.
dogs,
100%.
I mean, that's to be normal.
Yes.
But you just have to be aware of that pace, um,
Correct.
and allow yourself to realize that you got to go with their pace too. So try not to push it more quickly than is
Yes.
desirable. Yeah. Yeah. I think that
Take
makes
your
a lot of
time in
sense.
those early stages. In many
Yeah.
ways, I love the early stages with a new dog
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're simple, because it's just you and me, baby. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
very intimate.
Hmm.
The second stage, as I describe it in my book, is the more challenging stage, because that is the exposure stage. That is
Hmm.
when we start going out there more,
Yeah.
meeting more people, meeting more dogs, doing more things, going places. That could be more challenging because you're now widening
Yeah.
your dog's world. More could go wrong,
That's true.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you did your job right at stage one, exposure is a breeze,
Hmm.
actually,
Hmm. Yeah.
because you have that foundation.
Yeah. That's great. Wow. Well, there's so many things that I think with the shelter dogs and rescue dogs, and especially when you said, just because you want a purebred dog doesn't mean you can't find it in a rescue. You
Hmm.
can, and it does not mean that it's there because it has specific behavioral problems that you'll never be
Correct.
able to deal with. That's not the case.
Correct.
So there's lots of ways, lots of reasons why dogs end up in shelters and why they end up
Hmm.
in rescues. And there's no reason why people can't, that's one of the unfortunate things. A lot of times the rescues and shelters don't actually have a lot of background information
Hmm.
sometimes.
I
So
know.
you are guessing, and
Yes.
things will sort of divulge themselves. And then you have to just sort of think, okay, now that's interesting. I wonder what was behind that and how can we
Hmm.
deal with that.
Hmm.
Because there's obviously a reason.
Yeah.
But they just need a chance, the senior dogs in there and the dogs that have a little bit of a medical issue. And,
Correct.
all of these dogs, and cats, they need rabbits and small animals. They need that
Hmm.
chance.
I
And
agree.
if we can stanch this ridiculous flow from puppy
Hmm.
mills,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
these wonderful animals are available for everybody,
Hmm.
as you explained, there's so many things available to help us do that. I think we've covered quite a lot, and hopefully we've opened, a lot of eyes, and also, allayed some fears that people have about adopting
Yes.
a rescue or shelter dog. It's not
Agreed.
scary, and
No.
adopting an older dog, not just puppies, that kind of deal
Agreed.
too. Would you like to just remind everyone of your book and how they can get it and how they can
For
get in touch with
sure.
you?
For sure. So the title of the book is The Way of Life Method: How to Heal Your Relationship with Your Dog and Raise a Sound, Strong, and Spirited Dog at Any Age. The book is available in ebook, in print, hardcover and softcover, and audiobook, anywhere you stream your audiobooks and anywhere you buy your books.
Awesome.
People can get in touch with me through our website,
Mhm.
wayoflifedogtraining.com.
Perfect.
Okay. And we're on all the socials. We're on YouTube, Facebook,
Mhm.
Instagram. And we also have a growing community on Facebook called the Way of Life Method Working Group.
Okay.
And that is a private group of our clients and students and followers who are fans of the method, who are applying the method to their particular dogs and situations. And it's been a wonderful community. So that is another space
That's
that
really
people
good.
can find and can join
Hmm.
and learn from others. I share videos on there that I don't share elsewhere.
Oh,
I
nice.
share pro tips on there that I don't share elsewhere.
Hmm.
But also, what's really wonderful is people sharing their successes
Mm. Hmm.
with their own dogs, their questions, their challenges.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a very supportive community.
Nice.
Many of our members love how responsive everyone is and
Hmm. Not
non-judgmental and
judgmental. Yeah.
supportive
Yeah.
within that community because
Nice.
they've so benefited from the Way of Life method. Their
Hmm.
lives have been changed by the method
Hmm.
that they want to see others succeed with it as well.
Of course. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So the Way of Life method working group is another place where you
Good.
can find support if you are interested in this method and applying it to your own
Yeah.
dogs, whether they're shelter or rescue dogs or otherwise.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's been such a pleasure again talking to you, and I'm
Thank you so much. Pleasure's
hoping
all mine, Val. It's been great.
I'm hoping that we can come up with some more items to discuss and share at another
That would
time.
be amazing.
Do we can
That
come
would be
up with?
wonderful. There's so
Okay.
much to talk about.
Yeah,
So
there
I'm sure
really
we'll
is. There
we'll
really
put our
is.
brains together and we'll
Yeah.
think of other topics that
Yeah.
matter to people, that people care about, and where we can potentially provide, just as we provided today,
Yeah.
assuaging fears,
Yes.
raising hopes, and providing concrete ways of succeeding.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Suha, and you take care. And thank you so much for your time and your expertise as always.
Thank you so much,
All
Val.
right. You take care.
You as well.
Well, again, I would just like to thank Souha Ezzedeen for taking the time to talk about a really important topic, and that is rescue and shelter dogs. As I said, some people I encounter are die-hard adopters. They would never think of buying a dog. But some certainly want specific dogs, some get conned, and some have major misconceptions about shelter dogs. You would be surprised how many actual purebred dogs can be found in shelters. The reasons that a dog may end up in a shelter are varied. Behavior reasons are not the top reason. There are so many sweet, loving, playful dogs in shelters. And heartbreakingly, senior dogs sit in shelters being overlooked for that very reason. I have had 2 registered purebred dogs. Would I do that again? I'm going to say no. After adopting Tundra and getting the best dog ever, I would never do the purebred dog purchase again. I implore everyone to consider a rescue or shelter dog. And if you are already a convert, keep the conversation going about the benefits of adopting, not shopping. And Souha's Way of Life method is always there for direction. So, as always, do some research because, as I say, knowing is caring. Thank you for listening to Val Talks Pets. Please remember to follow or subscribe to ensure that you never miss an episode. To really help the show and to make it easier for others to find, please rate and review each episode that you find interesting and helpful. And don't forget that you can also email me at val@valtalkspets.com with topics you would like me to address or with any questions you may have. Also, check out my website at valtalkspets.com and let me know what you think and how we can improve upon it. Thanks for caring.